The National Retail Federation shared this week that Trump's proposed tariffs on apparel, toys, furniture, appliances, footwear, and travel goods alone would cost consumers an extra $46 billion to $98 billion a year. I've heard a lot of different reports about what does that mean to your bottom line. And the pricing I've seen is between $2,600 and $7,200. Now, I think it depends. Somebody who has a bigger lifestyle, probably a lot more expensive. Somebody who has a very simple lifestyle, it could be less. But again, that's something to watch. Hi, I'm Annette Bau, host of the Wealth Inside and Out podcast and founder of the Millionaire Insider. My mission is to help you simplify the money game so you can create a financially secure and fulfilled life without having to have a PhD or spend countless hours on your finances. You're going to learn how to think like a millionaire, stop worrying about money and wondering if your financial house is truly in order, and instead spend your time doing what you love. With over 3 decades advising 7, 8, and even 9-figure millionaires, and now joining that elite group, I'm in a unique position to help you make the best financial choices so you can create a secure financial future and retirement you love. This is the Wealth Inside and Out podcast. So today's question comes from Denise M. Can you share thoughts and insight on how tariffs, immigration, and Social Security may impact me and my family? First, I want to thank you, Denise. This is such a great question, and I have had several from our Millionaire Insider community about what people should be doing to plan and protect themselves and their families from the upcoming tariffs and immigration plan. And many people don't even understand them. So I thought it would just be a great opportunity to look at the big picture so that you can start making more informed decisions and obviously make the best decision for you and your situation. Now, clearly, there are no guarantees on what's going to happen. And there are many experts, including economists, money managers, as well as financial and business experts that are shedding insight on what potentially could happen. Regardless of where you stand politically, we are in unprecedented territory, and it's unlikely that winging your plan is going to work well. I really encourage you to take the information I'm sharing today and to create a plan. I think that is the best odds for you succeeding regardless of what happens. Now, I'm going to answer Denise's question to help you get kind of an insight on the potential impact of some of the proposals under consideration, including tariffs and immigration. And then next week, I'm going to dive into Social Security, inflation, and retirement, because those are such important topics and they're so encompassing. It was really impossible to do an episode on everything. The ultimate goal is to help you make the best decisions so that you can create a secure financial future. So please stay tuned. To access your free financial checkup, you can go to themillionaireinsider.com/FC. If you need help on your next best financial step to secure your financial future, I encourage you to take the financial checkup. It's going to give you insight that's going to help you to make your next best move. Again, themillionaireinsider.com/FC. Today's free checklist is the retirement planning checklist. You can go to themillionaireinsider.com/RPC. One of the biggest concerns I have with what's going on as far as the economic plan are the cuts that could potentially occur, specifically relating to government programs, and that includes Social Security and Medicare. Now, it's not happened yet, and we're not sure what's going to happen, but with today's episode and the next week's, you're going to at least have a better understanding of what you need to be watching for so you can create a plan. For this reason, it's imperative that you take time to create a plan and specifically start funding your own retirement, meaning you take your retirement into your own hands. If the experts are wrong, you're still going to win because you're going to have more money to spend when you need it in retirement. There's nothing fun about running out of money or worrying about money or not having enough money in retirement. So creating a plan so that you can secure your financial future should be a top priority. And this checklist is going to give you insight to do it. Again, you can go to themillionaireinsider.com/RPC. For today's show notes, you can go to themillionaireinsider.com/87. All materials and intellectual property are copywritten by themillionaireseries.com. This information is for educational purposes only. It is not intended to replace any advisor or specialist or to provide any investment, financial, tax, retirement, planning, or healthcare advice. So the first thing I encourage you to do is to just ask questions and seek information before you need the answer. Now, there are a few things that I found absolutely fascinating. There are a lot more conversations and questions going on now after the election about tariffs and the impact they could have on people's financial future than there were before the election. Regardless of who's running and who you support, I would encourage you to look into the facts before just to make sure you're making an informed decision. And more importantly, that you're making a decision that is going to work best for you and your family. The other thing I found really interesting is that the day after the election, one of the most searched questions was, what is a tariff and how will it affect me? From the posts and interviews I've seen, it proves that most people, even business owners, have no idea how tariffs work or the impact they'll have on their business or their lives. Now, while many people believe that the originating country, say for instance, China, is going to pay for the cost of the tariff, the reality is that the business who purchased them ultimately pays for them, and then they pass it on to the consumer. So obviously, how that impacts you is that ultimately you're going to pay more. If you're a business owner buying items that are subject to tariffs, then your business will have to pay more. You likely will have to pass that on to the consumer. If you are a consumer just buying something, you're going to be paying more. So it's important to understand what a tariff is. So let's just start with kind of a bigger picture of what it is. It's a tax or duty that's imposed by a government on goods and services that are imported. They're used to regulate trade between countries, and they can serve a variety of purposes. One is to generate revenue. Governments can use tariffs as a source of income, as well as for protectionism. Tariffs can protect domestic industries. Those would be, in our situation, companies that are in the US that are making goods or have services. The result of this is that the imported goods are more expensive. And so it encourages consumers to buy locally or US made products. Now, one thing I want you to just get clear on, this is something that I have not seen anyone address. Many of the things that are made in the United States or in America use products and ingredients that are made outside. For example, the ingredients could be imported from another country, or the actual products they're using, the tools, the equipment they're using to produce the product could be made outside the United States. All of that's still going to increase your price. And the example I heard, which I thought was brilliant, was Hershey bars. Everyone knows a Hershey bar. It's kind of like the American candy bar. It's made in Hershey, Pennsylvania. The example they gave was the tools and products that were used to produce the Hershey bar are largely made in China. Think of ovens, pans, utensils. And the nuts and cocoa chocolate is imported because we do not produce cocoa. The report guesstimated that chocolate bars could increase by as much as 40 to 60%, depending on both tariffs and immigration reform. The projection is if you have $1 candy bar, 20% would mean it would cost $1.20, 40% $1.40, and 60% $1.60. They currently are running about $1.39. So just take that into account. Now, that's just a Hershey bar. Obviously, there are a lot of other products and goods that are going to be a lot more expensive, but I want you to get that concept. Another reason tariffs often come into play is trade policy. This can be very effective because in our case, the United States can use these tariffs to influence trade relationships. They can discourage dumping, meaning selling goods at below market value, or retaliate against unfair trade practices by other countries. I mean, that's why I would bet that the proposal for China is 60%, is because the trade practices are not fair. Other reasons are examples of what's happening right now with the threat to Mexico and Canada. Now, this may change 100 times before it actually goes into effect, but anyone who's paying attention, I think it's 25% tariff day one, when President-elect Trump takes office, that he's going to put on all products coming from Mexico and Canada in an effort to stop immigration and drug trafficking. One of the things that's really interesting, I saw this diagram about where things are imported. And like those of us that are in Arizona, I think it was Texas, New Mexico, maybe Colorado, we have a huge amount of things that are imported from Mexico. Whereas when you look at a lot of the southern states like Florida, Mississippi, Alabama, all that red band, a ton of stuff was imported from China. So a lot of that could impact the cost of what we're paying. Some of the effects of tariffs. The first one is a benefit to domestic producers, meaning the businesses in the US are making the product. And they benefit because tariffs make imported goods more expensive. And so it reduces the competition they have from foreign producers. As a result, consumers are forced to buy domestic products or pay higher prices for the imported goods. There's less competition and even possibly price gouging. So it's something to be aware of. Foreign trade also is impacted because tariffs can lead to trade disputes and retaliatory measures from other countries. What I find really interesting is, I mean, you just go into a rabbit hole when you start looking into this. But one of the things that I found from the tariffs the last time, meaning when President Trump was president, he added tariffs onto steel, as many of us remember. And it was guesstimated that about 16,000 jobs were created by those tariffs. But then another report from the Federal Reserve estimated that those tariffs cost the U.S. economy about 300,000 jobs by the end of 2019 due to reduced trade and higher costs for businesses. So again, you got to look at this. There's going to be some plus, some minuses. Other jobs could have been created. And I believe one report I saw shared that 1,800 new jobs were created. So there's going to be some plus, some minuses. These are kind of like huge. And obviously, if you look at unemployment during these times, obviously this was before COVID, it wasn't as big of a disparity as this share. So again, you have to look at all those numbers and understand that when they're sharing numbers, there can be other data, meaning where there are other jobs that are created outside that specific industry. So again, it's just something to be paying attention to. Let's talk for 1 minute why imports can be really important and why we as Americans rely so heavily on them. One is climate. And just think about cocoa, which is chocolate. That's a really big one for me because I love my dark chocolate and even coffee. Or tropical fruits. Another is cost effectiveness. Different countries, such as China, can produce products for a lot less money than we can. Specialization. Think about Swiss watches, French wine, Italian cheese, some of those specialty products, and then consumer demand. Some people want authentic or exotic items, and they aren't made in the United States. But tariffs are a significant component of an international trade policy, and they can shape the economy and the relationships with different nations. Now, the proposed tariffs are 20 to 40% on all imports, except for China. China would be 60%. My biggest concern with these proposed tariffs are views of economists. Now, what's interesting is that a lot of the money managers, when they come out, they're like, well, let's just wait and see. Now, clearly, they don't want you pulling your money out of the market. So you always have to look at what is the backstory, meaning I don't think I've ever in my life heard a money manager that works for a firm paint a really doom and gloom, like get your money out of the market now. So you just got to be aware of that. But I do pay more attention specifically when it comes to economists and what they're saying. And there's like 23 Nobel Prize winning economists that have warned against Trump's economic plan as far as tariffs, meaning that it's going to lead to higher prices, larger deficits, and greater inequality. One economic analyst, Steve Pattern, has noted that he feels the tariff plan and even immigration, I believe both of them, would cut the gross domestic product in the US by 8.9%, sending us into either a recession or even a depression. Those are things that we all need to be aware of. Now, what do? We just got to create a plan, start figuring out what we can do so that if the economy drops or goes down, we are prepared. We've heard them on the trail, I think more Elon Musk, but saying, there's going to be some tough times to get to the other side of it. I have hope that if the economy starts tanking, they're going to do something about it, because they know that if the economy tanks, they're not going to keep the trifecta, which means right now they have the House, the Senate, and the presidency. But the issue of what's going to happen during these next 2 or 4 years is something you just got to pay attention to, and you got to be prepared. We can sit in a state of fear and worry, but the reality of it is we just have to have a plan, and we need to be executing. And I think the good sign of all of this is it's just like a wake-up call. We have got to be paying attention, and we've got to be looking at things we can do to become more resourceful, possibly increase our income, decrease our spending, look for local sourcing for our meat and our produce, and just come out stronger on the other side. Create a plan for our retirement in the event that Social Security does go broke sooner rather than later, or they have to incorporate measures such as not keeping pace with inflation or reducing benefits. All of these things, my friends, are a wake-up call, and I think it's just something that we all need to pay attention to. A lot of people are going into such a fear state, and that's not ideal, because then you get into a state of inertia where you just worry, but you do nothing. What I want you to do is be aware, create a plan, and then start executing. And then wait and see what happens. And obviously vote, right? That's what we all got to do. And then we got to live with it. You live in a democracy. That's the beauty of it. You get to vote and determine who is going to make these decisions. Now, the latest threat to Mexico and Canada, I believe, is 25%. So what's going to be reality, we don't know yet. Some of these could just be a threat. But what I want you to be aware of is the impact this could have on you and your bottom line and your family, so you're prepared for it. Many of us would love to support a local U.S. business. And I saw one gentleman who has been stockpiling air fryers, ovens, microwaves, blenders, everything for the last 6 months for fear of the tariffs. The person interviewing him said, well, wouldn't you rather buy those in the United States? He said, absolutely, just give me an option. He said, the problem is you can't get them in the United States. And so if I don't buy them overseas now and stockpile them, he goes, I'm just going to be out of business. He said the prices were going to increase dramatically, somewhere in the tune of 40 to 100%, depending on the product. If they start adding tariffs to products that you can't get here, it's going to be a nightmare for people, because they're going to be forced to buy the more expensive products that are coming from China or different countries. And there are other products that just will never be available here. So we got to be aware of it. Let's look at some categories of foods that are imported. Fruits and vegetables, so like tropical fruit, bananas, mangoes, pineapples, papayas, out-of-season produce, berries, tomatoes, avocados, specialty vegetables, artichokes, hearts of palm, and even some mushrooms, seafood such as shrimp, salmon, tuna, crab, spices and herbs such as cinnamon, vanilla, saffron, turmeric, and black pepper, coffee, tea, and cacao, which gives me anxiety. How much is that going to go up by? One of the things I did find out in my research is that coffee lasts for 8 months. Now, I think the reality of it is that's probably conservative. So I figure you could stock up on 12 to 18 months of coffee or chocolate before tariffs kick in. But other things are cheese and specialty dairy. Roquefort and brie are imported. Olive oils come from Spain, Italy, Greece. Alcoholic beverages, wines, beers, Scottish whiskey, French wines, Mexican tequila, and then grains such as jasmine and other specialty rices and lentils. Commonly imported house goods to the U.S. include electronics, furniture and home decor, kitchenware, textiles, and bedding, as well as cosmetics and personal care items. Let's talk about China now, because this is something that's going to impact all of us. The most common imports: electronics, smartphones, laptops, tablets, TVs, and smartwatches, batteries, circuit boards, and semiconductors, small household appliances, vacuums, blenders, air fryers, microwaves, ovens, machinery and equipment, a lot of industrial machinery, which a lot of companies use, even if they make it in the US, motors, transformers, and generators. I remember years ago, they did a clip, and I believe it was 60 minutes. It was so good. The whole thing was that, Ford is made in America and Toyota wasn't. And so they did a comparison and it was crazy. There were more parts from the Toyota that were made in America than there were from the Ford. And most of us don't think that way. And so those are things we just got to be aware of. Sometimes we think we're buying something that's made in America, but all the products and the ingredients aren't. Textiles and apparel, t-shirts, jeans, jackets, undergarments, sneakers, sandals, boots, fabrics, including clothing, bedding, sheets, comforters, and pillowcases. Now, one of the things that's huge are shoes. And I heard one report that said we purchase 75 million pairs of shoes a year, and we only produce 25 million. Boy, that would impact almost everyone, right? Because most of us do buy, it was tennis shoes. It wasn't just shoes, it was tennis shoes. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to get tennis shoes. I have my whole list going. I bought my Oro, I'm buying my high-end blow dryer. I got to buy tennis shoes. I'm trying to get all the things that are potentially going to be impacted by tariffs purchased, which I recommend you do the same thing. Toys, games, and entertainment, puzzles, video games, bicycles, board games, tennis rackets, yoga mats, furniture and home goods, chairs, tables, sofas, beds, lamps, mirrors, picture frames, plastic and rubber products, containers, kitchenware, storage boxes, pretty much anything that's plastic, and then manufacturing, packaging. Metals and metal products, hammers, wrenches, drills, construction materials, steel and aluminum parts, vehicles and parts, automobile parts, tires, engines, and electronics for cars, including bicycles and scooters, medical and pharmaceutical products, face masks, gloves, and personal protection equipment that many hospitals use, medical devices, including thermometers and testing kits, household goods and kitchenware, utensils, pots, pans, dishware, cleaning tools like brooms, mops, and microfiber cloths, footwear, we talked about those, athletic shoes, casual wear, and work boots. And as I said before, tennis shoes, huge, solar panels, renewable energy. A lot of those products are produced over in China. Consumer goods, beauty products, cosmetics, accessories, jewelry, watches, handbags, and then chemicals that are used in manufacturing as well as for pharmaceuticals and cosmetics. Now, there's already a lot of talk, and even one of the major money managers said that some of the big donors to Trump are putting pressure to have certain tariffs waived on products they need to build whatever it is they do, their car, whatever that is. So that, from my understanding, what I've been shared, and obviously this could change 100 times, is that those that have supported him, if he's willing to listen, will give a list of things they don't want to have tariffs on, and then it would be a waiver on that product. So then anyone using that would benefit. But as you know, if you're paying attention to this, there's a lot of people who are concerned about these tariffs. And there are people who are Republicans and Democrats. So it goes on both sides of the aisle. And they're concerned because it's going to impact their business. The reality of it is the ultimate person it's going to impact is the consumer. And so it's going to be potentially problematic for all of us. All right, what are some of the positives? One positive is it can increase jobs in the United States. It also can be a bargaining chip, which would make import-exports more balanced. So that could be a real positive. But the negative is the cost of goods. When you lose exports as retaliation, which often happens, there's going to be a loss of jobs. One of the other negatives that I saw right away, right after the election, was several people saying that their partner or one of their friends' spouse was not going to get a bonus because the company was taking that money to use it to buy inventory because of the fear of tariffs. And then layoffs. The bottom line is it's going to impact most of us. Now, one of the things that has already occurred, and I thought this was really interesting, it was either the day of the election or the day after, Nissan announced that they were going to lay off 9,000 people because of tariffs. And then there was immediate backlash. People who have supported Trump were very upset. And then they immediately came out, like within the next week, saying it wasn't because of Trump or the tariffs. Now, what's the truth? What's the reality? Who knows? It was just weird timing that they would announce it as soon as he got elected. So that makes it a little suspect. But regardless, 9,000 jobs were lost. GM announced 1,000. The National Retail Federation shared this week that Trump's proposed tariffs on apparel, toys, furniture, appliances, footwear, and travel goods alone would cost consumers an extra $46 billion to $98 billion a year. Now, I've heard a lot of different reports about what does that mean to your bottom line. And the pricing I've seen is between $2,600 and $7,200. Now, I think it depends. Somebody who has a bigger lifestyle, probably a lot more expensive. Somebody who has a very simple lifestyle, it could be less. But again, that's something to watch. Companies that have shared that they're going to have price increases include Walmart, Nike, Steve Madden, Home Depot, Lowe's, Amazon, Macy's. I thought it was interesting that Target said that if they find that their suppliers are increasing prices due to tariffs, they are going to force them to absorb that or find alternative solutions. Now, I'm assuming that's anticipatory. If all of a sudden things start going up at the tune of 60%, that story is going to probably change real quickly. And as I mentioned, a lot of Trump's big backers who have businesses are putting pressure on him to add waivers to specific tariffs. Now, that could be a plus if you end up needing to buy a car and let's say there are waivers on certain car parts or different businesses. So again, be aware of that. The bottom line, though, my friends, is that no one knows for sure what's going to happen. And the tariffs that go into effect will likely increase prices, which could spark an increase in inflation. The next step actions I share at the end of today's episode are going to help you. But I want to dive into immigration just so you again have an understanding of this. Now, living in a border state, I see it probably differently than some people. I think most of us are in agreement about that. How to do that, probably there's a lot more opinions. I've been saying for years, one of the biggest problems is global warming. When you look at some of these countries that are having problems, these poor people who typically have gardens, and that's how they feed their family, no longer can farm because they don't have the water and the climate is not allowing for it. From the missionaries I know who've served down there, they say the drugs are so rampant. If you want to live, your kid ends up being forced to be in a gang. You're afraid for your life. You're afraid for your family's life. It's a problem. My biggest concern is that there doesn't appear to be a plan. That's what we need as a plan. Now, I'm going to go back again. We all have our different views and our different experiences. Some of you may remember that it started in 2005, but it was really more like 2007 to 2012. Arizona decided they were going to do massive reform on undocumented illegal immigrants. They did this interview with the pastor where a lot of these immigrants went to church. They deported the families, specifically the husband and wives who were undocumented. And Arizona assumed they were going to take the whole family, but they didn't. They said, why would we take our kids? They are naturalized citizens, meaning they were born here. And so they can stay here. They can get educated. They're going to get better jobs. So they literally left. So when the pastor was describing, he goes, yesterday, granted, they weren't documented, but they were contributing. Some of them were even paying taxes, because if you understand how that works, a lot of them are paying taxes into the system, even though the Social Security number does not match theirs because they have to have a card or people won't hire them. So they're paying money into the system. They are paying for their kids and, they're getting by. The day after they left, he said, I now have, and my recollection was that it was 50 orphans. But what I remember him saying is I'm now getting $50,000 a month because these are orphans and I have They're staying here for the time being. And I remember thinking, okay, that's not really, I don't think what they had planned. You weren't paying that yesterday and now you're paying it today. My point is this, my friends, it's not to argue with you about what's right or wrong. It's to think about what could happen and what are the issues so that we have a plan so that we can think about it before we just randomly go do something kind of like a knee jerk and then say, wait a minute, we should have thought this through. That's my point. After that occurred and I saw that interview and I just heard the aftermath of that, I never heard anything else about mass deportation. And it just made me realize that obviously something didn't work because it kind of like went away. And here, 12 years ago? Maybe we can learn something from that. Now, the other thing I want you guys to just think about, and again, obviously I have a wide range of people that listen to this, but these are things I want you to think about. These are questions I want you to ask. Many people want to remove people that aren't citizens from the government payroll. And if you think about it, I mean, this is my analogy. If I'm struggling to pay my bills, can't pay my rent, having a hard time buying food, and somebody's living next to me who's got their rent paid and their food paid, and they're not a US citizen, and I am, I can understand how that would make a person a little frustrated. What a lot of people don't understand is that those people that are living there getting money from the government are protected under amnesty laws. And that's not going to change, at least in the near future. And I'm not even sure what the laws would take to change it. But I don't think a lot of people understand that. They're saying this is not fair because they're getting money from the government, when in reality, a lot of these undocumented immigrants are the ones that are doing the jobs we don't want to do. And so then the question becomes, what are we going to do about that? Now, a couple other insights to just be aware of. There are guesstimates from an article Newsweek did that about $25 billion a year is paid into Social Security by undocumented immigrants that will never get that benefit. I've seen reports as high as $95 billion, but I also have seen that it's virtually impossible to know the exact amount. Most of us agree that illegal, dangerous immigrants should be taken out of this country. But let's talk about the people that are coming in here legally. I have heard so many reports that it takes like 4 to 5 years for their case even to be heard. I just think that's completely ineffective, inefficient. It's too long, and it just clogs up the system, and it's not providing a solution. I really would love to see something like that change. And again, that's something to watch for, because all of those things increase costs. And I don't know the details about how those people are helped out financially until they get to court or what happens there. But again, that's something to be aware of. If they're not helped out, then they're probably working illegally, making money under the table and not paying taxes. So again, there would be a benefit to most of us if that got fixed. Now, I also know that there's a couple major firms in Arizona that since the election and the fear of tariffs and immigration, that their business is at a standstill. It's in the real estate sector. They don't have new contracts coming in. A lot of them have been pulled until they can figure out what is going to happen with tariffs and immigration, because they don't know the pricing. So some of those things are just things to watch out for. If we continue to see problems in different sectors where they're not functioning, they're not making revenue, they can't make decisions, that's not good for any of us. So what are the most common industries that are going to be impacted by immigration? Meat packing, cleaning, restaurants, construction, manufacturing, produce, including fruits and vegetables. That's more farming. All of those are going to increase the cost of goods for those. And some people think that, a lot of things will just be rotting because they don't have the labor to do it. I mean, I kind of laugh and think, I've seen some different reports where they get paid 45 cents a bucket of fruit they pick. I'm thinking, okay, so how many of those can you do an hour? It's not a job a lot of people want. Agriculture guesstimates about 45% of the workers, nearly 950,000 out of 2.2 million workers, are undocumented. Construction is at about 12%. Hospitality and food services, 7%. Healthcare, which surprised me. They employ over 346,000 undocumented immigrants. And I just thought that was fascinating to me. And then obviously manufacturing. So there's a lot of industries it's going to impact. Again, my friends, the key with this is to pay attention because all of these things, regardless of what you believe or want to believe or know, these are going to impact all of us and they can have a profound impact on the amount of money we have to spend and more importantly, the money we have to save. The bottom line is at the time of this recording, there are just a lot of uncertainties and you need to plan accordingly. And while I personally am very concerned about the impact of tariffs and immigration, I'm more concerned about the impact of inflation and Social Security and the impact it's going to have on your retirement. So please tune in to episode 88, Social Security, Inflation, and Your Retirement Plan. Ugh, I think that one is going to be one of the most important episodes I've done all year. So let's recap on tariffs, immigration, and your finances. There's no certainty about what's going to happen. And I really do thank you for the question, Denise, and my many loyal millionaire insiders. I know you're doing the best you can to make the best decisions in your life. And I just encourage you to continue doing that. Some of my recommendations to plan and be prepared is number one, find local sources for produce and meat. Most states have farms and they'll sell you a half of a cow or a fourth of a cow or a pig. There are also a lot of sources for fresh produce. So get creative and ahead of the potential increases in costs due to tariffs and immigration reform. Stock up on non-perishable items and supplies that are imported. As I mentioned, I bought my Aura ring. I'm buying a high-end blow dryer. We are stocking up on a variety of things. We're looking at sources on how we can get produce, how we can get meat and different things like that, just so we're prepared. From reading it, 6 months to maybe a year is how long the meat will last. So after that, you're going to have a plan B. But if you have a source, that's an option. As I mentioned, we're making major purchases, as many individuals are, because we're already seeing companies rising prices. Now, one of the issues, my friends, is price gouging. Clearly, there are issues if the government starts stepping in and starts, really getting tough on price gouging. But my friends, the last several years, probably 2 or 3 years, the issue in the economy has been more price gouging than it has anything else. And I'll say this firsthand. I mean, I benefited from it because if you own stock and you have money, it's been heaven. Our stocks have quadrupled. We have made millions, whereas people who are the consumers buying those products have just been taken to the ringer. I don't agree with that. I don't agree that we can allow the rich to just keep getting richer and the poor to keep getting poorer. And while I don't agree with a lot of things Steve Bannon says, he just came out and said, you have to tax the ultra wealthy unless you want a French Revolution. I've been saying that for years and I will stand behind it. And when you have companies price gouging, meaning the cost of goods and labor had been high, but then it came down, but the prices didn't. What they did is they just started passing those on to stockholders, those of us that own their stock, and kept charging the consumer more money. That's a problem. When average Joe, average Sally cannot afford to buy eggs, they can't afford to put food on their table, it's a problem. And I think that's something I'd really encourage you to watch because it's going to dictate a lot about the future of what's going to happen from both an economic as well as a political front. Save as much money as you can. If tariffs don't come to fruition and deportation doesn't cause costs to increase, just think about it. You're going to have more money set aside. You can't lose. You can then use that money you save for retirement or to increase your emergency reserve, a double win. Purchase essentials and products now that could be impacted by tariffs and immigration, and then become conscious where you're spending your money and focus on needs and limit wants until we have a better idea of what is going to happen. I just shared on social media. I'm so proud of myself. So we were out on Black Friday. I've only been out twice on Black Friday my entire life, maybe 3 times, 2 I can remember. And of course, I end up at the jewelry store. There was this aqua ring, aquamarine ring. Oh my God, it was so cool. And there were 2 of them. One was so gaudy. It was like 20,000. Then it was 10,000 and it was on sale for 5,000. And it was just gaudy. Like, I'm like, where am I going to wear that? I mean, it was so gaudy. It had so many diamonds and it was just beautiful, huge. And I'm like, okay. But then they had another one that was probably about half price. And of course, my husband, he's the worst person to go shopping with. He's like, of course, get it. Oh my God, that looks so good. And the woman at the front's like, gosh, I wish I had a husband like that. I'm like, honey, would you look at me and tell me I don't need this? I have more jewelry than I should be allowed to have. Because I think you should get it. And he's still saying to me, why don't we go back and get that? I am so proud of myself. I didn't. I said, here I am creating my millionaire money model for my wonderful millionaire insider community. And I said, I have to be doing the things that I want my community to do. And I have to be making decisions based on that. Now, it's not saying I can't buy anything, but I want to be going through the motions with you, my friends. And I was so proud of myself because I don't need it. I have so many rings that I can wear on my right ring finger. I have tanzanite. I have an incredible Tiffany's sapphire diamond ring. And I got that in such a smoking deal. It's like a $16,000 or $17,000 ring I got for $5,000 because it's used. And it is just incredible. I get so many compliments on that. So something like that I see as more of an investment, whereas this other, not so much. Now, I'm not encouraging you to go do that. I did that a few years ago. But my point is just be smarter with your money and then start your retirement plan. Like it or not, more of the burden is going to fall on you. That's really the bottom line. We're going to talk about Social Security next week. But my friends, if you're relying on Social Security, it's time to wake up. You've got to be taking ownership of your future. And that is something you will never regret. So I encourage you to follow these insights that I gave you. It's going to increase the odds that you can create a secure financial future. Review it, make a plan, and then execute it. And on that note, my friends, make it great. If you love the content of this podcast, please follow and subscribe to our channel so you get notified of episodes, and also give us a 5-star review and share a comment. We really appreciate it. Congratulations on taking another step to create a financially free life you love. If you're not sure about your financial future or that it's in order, or you are ready to stop worrying about money, or possibly the fear of becoming a bag lady, ending up broke in retirement, or you simply are ready to know your financial house is in order so that you can have a bright financial future, please go to themillionaireinsider.com/NSF. And that doesn't stand for non-sufficient funds. It stands for Next Step Finance. It's the next best step of what you need to do so you can avoid an NSF notice in your future. Again, themillionaireinsider.com/NSF. The number of women who were not broke or poor while working or married is staggering. The entire mission of the Wealth Inside and Out podcast is to ensure you have the information for you, your family, your friends, anyone who's willing to listen to it and apply it so that you can create a financially free life you love. Again, themillionaireinsider.com/NSF. Until our next episode, take one action that will help you create a financially free life you love. I'm Annette Bau, your host. All international copyrights are reserved. Bye for now.